Have you ever felt that nagging suspicion that the very principles we're taught to cherish might actually be setting us up for failure? Think about it for a moment. Since childhood, we've been fed a steady diet of beliefs that sound virtuous on the surface. Always be available for others, give your time freely, spread your energy to help as many people as possible. But what if these seemingly noble ideals are actually silent saboteurs of your personal power? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. I used to believe that being constantly available was a mark of my dedication and value. My phone was always on, my schedule perpetually flexible for others' needs. Sound familiar? We're conditioned to think that saying yes makes us good people, that sacrifice is the path to respect and appreciation. But has this approach actually earned you the respect you deserve? Or has it left you feeling drained and undervalued? The uncomfortable truth I've discovered through years of observation and personal experience is that unlimited availability doesn't lead to appreciation. It leads to exploitation. When you're always there, people don't value your time. They simply expect it. Your constant presence becomes invisible, taken for granted like the air we breathe. Nobody treasures what comes without effort or cost. Consider this. Have you ever noticed how the most respected individuals in any field, whether business leaders, thought pioneers, or even those in your personal circles, seem to have mastered the art of selective availability? There's wisdom in this approach that dates back centuries. Machiavelli, one of history's greatest political strategists, recognized a fundamental truth about human power dynamics. Concentration overcomes division every time. Think of your energy and attention as precious resources, because they are, when you scatter them widely, making yourself endlessly available to everyone and everything, you create vulnerability in your personal power structure. Each commitment, each yes when you should say no, creates a small crack in your foundation. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this principle might completely transform how you approach your relationships and commitments. What's particularly insidious about this pattern is how it's packaged and sold to us. These expectations of unlimited availability come wrapped in beautiful concepts: loyalty, empathy, selflessness, making them difficult to question without feeling like you're somehow morally deficient. But ask yourself, who benefits most from your perpetual availability? Is it truly you? The counterintuitive reality I'm about to share with you might feel uncomfortable at first, but what you're about to discover could fundamentally change how others perceive and treat you. If you're ready to stop explaining yourself to the world and start building in silence, make sure you subscribe right now, join this channel, and never miss the laws of power that will keep you untouchable. The deepest transformation in our lives often happens when we realize that we've been operating from a place of perceived powerlessness. Think about it. How many decisions have you made today based on what others might think? That email you carefully worded, the outfit you chose, even the way you expressed an opinion, all subtly filtered through the lens of external validation. This dependency creates an invisible prison. When your sense of worth comes from outside approval, you're essentially handing over the keys to your life to everyone else. You become like a leaf in the wind, blown wherever the currents of external opinion take you. This is the hidden truth that many never confront. Seeking validation isn't just a personality trait, it's a fundamental surrender of your personal power. The journey toward genuine autonomy begins with a radical shift in perspective. Instead of seeing yourself as a character in someone else's story, you position yourself at the center of your own narrative. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or dismissive of others. Rather, it means understanding that your primary relationship is with yourself, and all other relationships flow from that foundation. When you start making decisions from this centered place, something remarkable happens. The constant Anxiety about what others might think begins to fade. The mental space previously occupied by those concerns becomes available for creativity, growth, and genuine connection. It's as if you've been carrying a heavy backpack your whole life, and suddenly you realize you can put it down. This internal revolution extends to how you approach your path in life. The notion that you need permission to withdraw from distractions, to focus intensely on building your skills, knowledge, or business. This is another illusion that keeps many trapped in mediocrity. The most significant achievements in human history have come from people who gave themselves permission to go deep, often against conventional wisdom. Your mind truly is the battlefield where this war for your future is fought daily. Each thought that says, "I should check what others are doing," or "I need validation before proceeding," is an insurgent against your sovereignty. The most decisive moments in your development aren't the public victories, but the private decisions, when you choose to trust your judgment, when you decide to isolate yourself to master a skill, when you commit to building something regardless of immediate recognition. Now, I want to go even deeper into how this mindset shift creates ripples through every aspect of your existence. The impact extends far beyond just feeling more confident. It fundamentally alters how opportunities appear in your life, how you navigate challenges, and even how others respond to your presence. If any of this resonates with your own experience, write in the comments, "I'm reclaiming my power." I'd love to know who's on this journey of inner sovereignty. Focus on yourself, because no one will save you, lend you power, or feel your pain like you do. This might sound harsh, but it's a truth that becomes clearer when you examine the undercurrents of human relationships. We often place excessive faith in others, believing they'll show up for us the way we show up for them. The reality, everyone is fighting their own battles, dealing with their own limitations, and ultimately can only give what they have capacity for. Outdated loyalty and friendship can be psychological traps, controlling your growth subconsciously. Think about how many times you've remained in situations that weren't serving you because of misplaced loyalty. Maybe it's a friendship that hasn't evolved alongside you, or a relationship where you're giving endlessly without receiving. These connections can anchor you to past versions of yourself, versions you've outgrown but feel obligated to maintain. Subscribe today and step into a world where focus and discipline create unshakable power. Don't just watch, lock in with us and transform your life with every video. This isn't about becoming cold or dismissive of meaningful relationships. It's about the transformation that happens when you recognize that your journey is fundamentally your responsibility. When you truly internalize, this decision-making becomes clearer. You stop seeking validation before making choices that align with your authentic path. I've witnessed countless revelations when people finally understand this principle. They describe feeling a weight lifted, like they've been given permission to prioritize their growth without the guilt that often accompanies personal evolution. There's something profoundly liberating about accepting that while others can walk beside you, no one can walk your path for you. Behind the scenes of every successful person's journey is this same understanding. They've learned, sometimes through painful experiences, that waiting for rescue or permission is a hidden trap. The most meaningful progress begins when you take full ownership of your direction. This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. It's developed through consistent self-reflection and intentional choices. You might find yourself questioning relationships that once seemed essential, but now feel limiting. This questioning isn't disloyalty, it's growth. It's recognizing that sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to honor your evolution. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this principle plays out in specific areas of life. Before we continue, though, if this perspective on self-reliance has resonated with you, write "taking ownership" in the comments below. You've probably felt it before, that strange tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. Well, here's a truth many won't tell you. Your past only continues to exist if you give it oxygen. Think about that for a moment. Those old stories, those outdated identities, they're not permanent fixtures unless you keep breathing life into them. I remember working with a client who constantly introduced himself by referencing a career accomplishment from 15 years earlier. This wasn't just a casual mention, it was his entire identity framework. I'm the guy who launched that famous campaign in 2008. His business was struggling, his relationships were strained, yet he clung desperately to this past version of himself, allowing it to define his present. This attachment to former glory isn't just nostalgia, it's a psychological prison. Every time you define yourself by what you once did, you're handcuffing your potential to an outdated version of yourself. The world moves forward whether you're ready or not. Here's where radical reinvention enters the picture, not as some flashy self-help concept, but as a fundamental survival mechanism. Nature understands this perfectly. Consider how a snake must shed its skin to continue growing. The old layer becomes constricting, limiting, potentially fatal if not discarded. The most resilient people I've encountered across industries share this ability to burn their scripts completely. They don't just make minor edits to their life story, they're willing to start an entirely new chapter when necessary. This isn't fickle, it's strategic adaptation. And there's another dimension to this that rarely gets discussed. Consistency, while often praised, can make you dangerously predictable. In business settings, market environments, even personal relationships, when people can anticipate your every move, you become vulnerable. Think about it from a strategic perspective. If competitors can map your patterns precisely, they can develop countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize your impact. The most fascinating leaders maintain a deliberate element of unpredictability. This isn't about being erratic. It's about maintaining the capacity to pivot and transform in ways that others don't expect. It creates a certain protective mystique, an inability for others to place you in a convenient box. The journey of reinvention isn't just about external success, it creates profound internal shifts. When you release yourself from outdated identities, you experience a unique form of liberation that allows for authentic growth rather than performative consistency. You develop what psychologists call identity flexibility, the capacity to adapt your self-concept in response to life's changing demands. Now, I want to go even deeper into understanding how this process of reinvention actually transforms not just how others see you, but how you experience yourself from the inside out. There's a fascinating relationship between your willingness to let go of past identities and your capacity to access new levels of creative thinking and problem-solving. If this concept of identity reinvention resonates with your own experience, type "ready to shed" in the comments below. When we talk about emotional detachment, what we're really exploring is a profound transformation in how we navigate everyday experiences. It's not about becoming a robot or suppressing your humanity, quite the opposite. This journey is about developing the wisdom to recognize which emotional responses are serving your highest good and which ones are holding you hostage. Think about the last time someone criticized you unfairly. Most people immediately feel defensive, angry, perhaps even hurt. Their day is suddenly derailed by this emotional reaction. But what if you could observe that criticism, acknowledge the feeling arising within you, and consciously decide, this emotion isn't useful to me right now? That's the hidden truth behind emotional mastery. Your reactions actually define you more than your actions ever will. Anyone can take action when things are going well. The real revelation comes in how you respond when faced with challenges. This is where your character is truly forged, in those split-second decisions between stimulus and response. I've witnessed this principle transform people's lives repeatedly. One client came to me after losing a major business deal. His initial reaction was devastation. He couldn't sleep, couldn't focus, and was spiraling into despair. Through our work together, he learned to separate his identity from these emotional responses. 6 months later, he closed an even bigger deal with a competitor, precisely because he approached negotiations with unusual calm and clarity. The power that comes from emotional discernment cannot be overstated. When others are reactive, you become responsive. When they're scattered, you remain centered. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a disciplined practice that unfolds through consistent attention to your internal landscape. Now, I want to go even deeper into this concept by examining how we can practically apply emotional detachment in high-pressure situations. The real magic happens when you understand that emotional intelligence isn't just a personal development buzzword. It's a tangible skill that creates measurable impact in every area of your life. The journey toward emotional sovereignty requires both courage and humility. You must be willing to observe yourself honestly, without judgment, seeing clearly the patterns that have defined your past responses. This mindset shift doesn't come easily in a world that often glorifies emotional reactivity and dramatic expressions of feeling. If any of this resonates with your own experience, write "Mastering My Emotions" in the comments below. I'm curious to know how many of you are already practicing this level of self-awareness in your daily lives. Silence speaks volumes. It enables you to maintain power without confrontation. When you choose not to respond immediately, you create space for interpretation. This vacuum often causes the other person to fill it with their own assumptions and revelations. It's a form of psychological leverage that costs you nothing but patience. I've seen negotiations completely transform when one party simply refuses to rush into words. Real power lies in unpredictability. Stay silent to make others reveal themselves. Think about it. When someone can't read your next move, they become uncomfortable. That discomfort leads to action, often premature action that exposes their true intentions. It's like a chess master waiting for their opponent to commit to a strategy before responding. The art of strategic silence isn't passive. It's an active choice that shapes the interaction. What's fascinating about this approach is how it creates a journey of self-discovery for both parties. When you embrace silence, you begin to recognize patterns in your own communication that may have been undermining your influence. Many of us speak too quickly out of insecurity or a desire to please. The revelation comes when you realize that controlled silence isn't about manipulation. It's about thoughtful engagement that honors the weight of your words. This mindset shift represents one of the hidden truths of effective communication. Most people believe that power comes from articulate speech, but often the opposite is true. The person who speaks least frequently often commands the most attention when they finally do speak. I've witnessed transformative moments in boardrooms when the quietest person finally offers their perspective and the entire room falls silent in response. Now, I want to go even deeper into this dynamic. Silence creates a subtle pressure that few can withstand. In a culture obsessed with filling every moment with noise and content, the deliberate pause becomes a powerful statement. It communicates confidence and self-assurance without saying a word. This psychological impact is what makes silence such a compelling tool in your personal and professional interactions. Consider how silence affects the balance of power in everyday conversations. When someone asks you a challenging question or makes a proposal, your immediate reaction might be to respond quickly, but that instant response often comes from a position of weakness. You're reacting rather than controlling the exchange. The journey toward mastering strategic silence begins when you recognize these moments and intentionally create space before responding. If this approach resonates with your own experiences, write in the comments, "Silence is my strength." I'm curious how many of you have already discovered this powerful technique in your own lives. Your environment isn't just the background to your life, it's actively programming your mind every single day. When you walk into a cluttered room, your brain immediately registers that chaos. Your subconscious doesn't just notice it, it begins to mirror it. That mental reflection happens whether you're conscious of it or not. This environmental influence goes deeper than most realize. The spaces we inhabit become invisible architects of our thinking patterns. A desk covered in scattered papers, cups, and random items doesn't just look messy, it creates cognitive friction every time you sit down to work. Each visual distraction pulls tiny fragments of your attention away from what truly matters. The transformation begins when you recognize this hidden truth. Controlling your environment is about creating power, not just aesthetics. When I first understood this principle, I realized I needed to become ruthless about eliminating distractions. Not just physical ones, but digital ones too. That notification sound, it's not just an interruption, it's a decision maker determining where your focus goes. Your room is essentially a physical manifestation of your mental landscape. A clean, intentional space creates mental clarity almost automatically. This isn't about perfectionism, it's about intention. Ask yourself, does this object, this arrangement, this setup serve my highest goals? If not, it's creating subtle resistance in your journey. I've found this environmental influence extends beyond just productivity. It impacts your mood, your creativity, even your willpower. When everything around you aligns with your objectives, you experience a kind of effortless momentum that's hard to create through discipline alone. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how strategic environmental design can actually rewire your brain's default settings. The spaces we create aren't just reflections of who we are. They're actively shaping who we're becoming. By understanding this reciprocal relationship, you gain access to one of the most overlooked leverage points for personal evolution. If you've ever noticed how different your mindset feels when you walk into a well-designed space versus a chaotic one, drop "environment matters" in the comments below. I'm curious how many of you have experienced this powerful connection firsthand. Motivational content lacks power if your environment whispers weakness for hours daily. You can listen to inspiring speakers and read all the self-help books in the world, but when you're constantly surrounded by individuals who doubt your vision or undermine your goals, their subtle influence seeps deeper than you realize. It's like trying to build a sandcastle while the tide consistently washes in. Eventually, even the strongest determination gets eroded. Disciplined people should surround your energy. Detach from those not reflecting your desired future. This isn't about abandoning relationships callously. It's about making conscious choices about who gets access to your mental space. The extraordinary transformation I've witnessed in clients who deliberately restructured their social circles is nothing short of remarkable. One particular journey stands out. Michael, who struggled for years to build his business while his closest friends consistently questioned his decisions. The hidden truth. Once he started spending time with other entrepreneurs and reduced time with his doubtful friends, his business grew threefold within months. The psychology behind this phenomenon runs deeper than mere motivation. Your brain operates on a fascinating principle called neurological mirroring. You naturally begin to adopt the thinking patterns, speech habits, and even the energy levels of those around you. This subconscious adaptation happens whether you're aware of it or not. When you immerse yourself among disciplined achievers, you absorb their decisive mindset, their problem-solving approaches, their resilience in facing obstacles. Consider this practical reality. If you spend 5 hours weekly consuming motivational content, but 30 hours with people who reinforce limiting beliefs, which influence do you think will prevail? The mathematics of personal development simply doesn't support this imbalance. Your environment isn't just a backdrop, it's an active participant in your journey toward excellence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this reality. Your social circle functions as your personal board of directors. These are the people whose opinions you value, whose perspectives shape how you see opportunities, and whose reactions often determine whether you'll pursue a bold idea or retreat into comfort. Look around at who sits on your board. Are they qualified to advise on the future you're building? Do they have the vision to see your potential? Or are they projecting their own limitations onto your ambitions? The revelation that transformed my own path came when I realized certain friendships weren't evil or toxic. They were simply misaligned with my evolution. Some relationships are season-specific, valuable for particular chapters, but not meant for your entire story. Recognizing this doesn't diminish the significance they once held. It honors the natural progression of human connection. If you've experienced this tension between where you are and where you want to be, write in the comments, "I'm upgrading my environment." This simple acknowledgement might be the first step toward intentionally crafting the social ecosystem that reflects your aspirations rather than your history. Subtract comfort, chaos, and weak voices to sharpen your focus. When you eliminate the excess and strip away the distractions that cloud your judgment, something powerful emerges. The noise fades, the path clears. You begin to see with startling clarity what truly matters and what's merely been consuming your energy without purpose. You were never meant to blend in. Your world must bend to your command. Think about that for a moment. The most transformative figures throughout history never conformed to the existing landscape. They reshaped it according to their vision. This isn't arrogance. It's the fundamental truth about human potential that most never realize. The journey toward this level of personal sovereignty isn't comfortable. In fact, the discomfort is precisely the point. When you deliberately step away from what feels easy and familiar, you enter a realm of growth that few are willing to explore. This is the hidden catalyst behind every meaningful breakthrough. Consider the environment you've created around yourself. Have you surrounded yourself with voices that challenge you to rise, or ones that whisper justifications for remaining where you are? The quality of these influences directly shapes the quality of your decisions, and subsequently, the quality of your life. What's fascinating about this process is how deeply personal it becomes. The same external circumstances can produce entirely different outcomes depending on your internal framework. Two people facing identical challenges, one crumbles while the other flourishes. The difference isn't luck or talent, but mindset architecture. Those who grasp this principle understand something essential. Mastery over your external reality begins with mastery over your internal landscape. When you command your thoughts, emotions, and responses with precision, the world around you has no choice but to respond accordingly. Now, I want to go even deeper into this revelation that most never fully comprehend. The relationship between your inner discipline and outer results follows mathematical precision, not random chance. Every area where your life feels out of control reveals where your inner governance requires strengthening. This understanding shifts your entire perspective. You stop seeing obstacles as unfair impositions and recognize them as necessary resistance, the exact pressure needed to forge your character into something extraordinary. The challenges aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. What's truly liberating about this approach is that it places the power squarely in your hands. No circumstance, no person, no external factor can determine your destiny without your permission. You become the architect rather than the inhabitant of your life's structure. If this perspective resonates with you, write "sovereign by design" in the comments. It's a powerful acknowledgement that you're claiming responsibility for crafting your reality rather than merely reacting to it. Time isn't something we're taught to value properly. Think about it. From childhood, we hear phrases like killing time or spending time as if it's just another commodity, but there's a profound transformation waiting for those who recognize this hidden truth. Time is the only resource that can never be replenished. Powerful individuals understand this revelation intuitively. They don't just spend time, they invest it with intention. Every hour becomes a deliberate deposit into their future. The wealthy man doesn't have more hours than you do. He simply extracted more value from each minute. This mindset shift is where your journey toward true achievement begins. When you start tracking your time with the same diligence as your finances, you'll be shocked at the discoveries you make. Most people can account for every dollar in their bank account, but couldn't tell you where their hours went yesterday. This awareness gap creates the divide between those who merely exist and those who truly live with purpose. Think of time as a double-edged sword. It will either work for you or against you. There's no neutral ground. Every decision you make about how to use the next hour is silently shaping your future reality. The moments you're casually scrolling through social media are the same moments someone else is using to build something meaningful. The most impactful realization on my personal journey was understanding that evolvement isn't about managing time. It's about curating experiences. When you view each day as a canvas rather than a calendar, you become the artist of your existence. This perspective allows you to see opportunities where others see obligations. Behind the scenes of every great achievement is someone who refused to treat time as an infinite resource. They understood its scarcity and respected its power. They recognized that saying, "I don't have time," is simply admitting it's not a priority, a humbling but necessary acknowledgement. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how specific time investments create compound returns in ways most people never recognize. The small daily choices that might seem insignificant are actually the building blocks of extraordinary outcomes. If you're resonating with this perspective shift, write in the comments, "Time is my currency," because understanding this principle is the first step toward harnessing its true power. You let time bleed out by reacting instead of designing and managing it sharply. When was the last time you actually designed your day with intention? Most of us wake up and immediately react to notifications, to other people's emergencies, to whatever feels most urgent in the moment. But here's the hidden truth. Your most valuable resource is being drained while you're in reaction mode. Think about how much of your day is spent responding rather than creating. The average person spends over 4 hours on their phone daily, much of it mindlessly scrolling. That's not a judgment. It's a revelation about how easily our time slips away. Without our conscious permission, the transformation happens when you flip this dynamic. Instead of letting your day happen to you, you design it with precision. This means establishing boundaries around your time that are as firm as the walls of your home. Would you let a stranger walk into your house and rearrange your furniture? Then why let random interruptions rearrange your schedule? Discipline isn't what most people think. It's not about white-knuckling your way through tasks or forcing yourself to work when you'd rather not. The journey toward true discipline begins with eliminating the hindrances that make it necessary in the first place. It's about creating an environment where discipline becomes almost effortless because you've removed the friction points. Think of it this way. If you keep cookies on your kitchen counter, you need tremendous willpower not to eat them. But if there are no cookies in your house at all, you don't need any willpower. That's the essence of designing your environment for success rather than relying solely on motivation. The impact of this shift in thinking cannot be overstated. When you stop seeing discipline as a character trait you either have or don't have, and start seeing it as a system you can design, everything changes. Your productivity increases, not because you're pushing harder, but because you've eliminated the resistance. This applies to your physical space, your digital environment, and your calendar. Clear your desk of distractions. Turn off notifications during deep work. Block time in your calendar for your most important work before anyone can claim it. These aren't just productivity hacks, they're decisions about how you value your life's most non-renewable resource, time. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how our social connections influence our ability to design our lives with intention. The people surrounding us can either reinforce our commitment to focused living or constantly pull us back into reactivity. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for lasting change. If any of these ideas have sparked recognition in your own life experiences, write in the comments, "I'm reclaiming my time." I'd love to know who's joining this journey toward intentional living. Productivity isn't about being busy, but moving with direction and purpose. When we confuse busyness with productivity, we fall into a dangerous trap. Think about it. Have you ever spent an entire day feeling exhausted from working, yet struggled to identify what you actually accomplished? This happens because we're often spinning wheels rather than driving forward. True productivity creates momentum toward meaningful goals. It's the difference between frantically answering emails all day versus spending focused time on projects that actually move your life or business forward. The transformation happens when we stop equating activity with achievement. Managing oneself strategically resists letting others control your time. This might be the most powerful revelation in modern work culture. Your time is the only truly non-renewable resource you have, yet most people surrender control of their schedules to whoever makes the loudest demands. The hidden truth here is that by default, your time belongs to everyone else unless you deliberately reclaim it. Strategic self-management means establishing boundaries that protect your most valuable hours. It means learning to say no without guilt and yes with intention. The journey toward mastering your time begins with recognizing that every time you say yes to someone else's priorities, you're saying no to your own. The impact of this mindset shift is profound. When you stop allowing others to dictate your schedule, you create space for deep work, the kind that requires sustained concentration and produces meaningful results. This isn't about being selfish, but rather about being intentional with your contributions. Behind the scenes of every highly effective person is a carefully guarded calendar. They understand that productivity isn't measured by hours worked, but by results achieved. They've discovered that 4 hours of focused, deliberate work often accomplishes more than 10 hours of reactive, interrupted effort. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the practical systems that transform these principles from abstract concepts into daily habits. Because understanding these ideas is only the beginning. Implementing them consistently is where the real challenge lies. If what I've shared resonates with your own experience with time management, write "Time belongs to me" in the comments below. Here's the truth that nobody wants to talk about. Our innate desire to be helpful can actually undermine our position in life. Think about it. How many times have you bent over backwards to assist someone only to find yourself taken for granted later? This isn't coincidence. It's a pattern I've observed repeatedly in professional relationships, friendships, and even families. When we consistently overextend ourselves, jumping at every request, solving problems before they're even fully articulated, we inadvertently send a message. My time, expertise, and energy are infinitely available. And here's the brutal reality. What's infinitely available becomes infinitely less valued. It's the transformation that happens silently, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize you've become the person everyone relies on, but few truly appreciate. The revelation that changed my entire approach came when I understood that genuine power isn't about withholding help. It's about the intentionality behind how you offer it. Think about the most respected figures in your life. Do they rush to solve every minor issue, or do they bring their wisdom and assistance at critical moments, making their contributions count? This mindset shift isn't about becoming cold or calculating. It's about recognizing that your help is a resource, perhaps your most valuable one, and deploying it with the same strategic thought you'd give to any important asset. People intuitively sense the difference between someone who helps out of desperation to be needed and someone who helps because they've thoughtfully chosen to engage. Behind every interaction lies this hidden truth. Your value is established by how you position your usefulness. When you help impulsively, without boundaries or expectations, you're training others to see your contributions as a given, not a gift. But when you offer assistance with intention, connecting it to your expertise, your unique perspective, or your specific capabilities, you create a completely different impression. The journey toward becoming powerfully helpful rather than helpfully powerless requires confronting some uncomfortable questions. Am I helping because I genuinely want to contribute, or because I'm afraid of saying no? Am I clear about the value I bring, or am I hoping others will somehow recognize it without me acknowledging it first? Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how to strike that perfect balance, being genuinely supportive while maintaining your position of strength. It's about creating boundaries that don't feel like walls and offering assistance that elevates rather than diminishes your standing. If anything I've said so far resonates with your experiences, type "boundaries create value" in the comments below. Let's be honest about something we all struggle with, the conflict between helping others and taking care of ourselves. Many of us were conditioned to believe that sacrifice is noble, that putting everyone else first is the ultimate virtue. But this mindset has created a generation of exhausted, resentful people who've lost sight of their own dreams. When you help someone out of guilt or obligation, you're not actually being generous. You're being manipulated by your own emotions. True. Generosity comes from a place of strength and abundance, not from weakness or fear. It's about making a conscious choice rather than feeling cornered into saying yes. I've witnessed countless transformations in people who finally set boundaries around their time and energy. One friend was constantly bailing out his brother financially until he realized he was enabling destructive patterns rather than actually helping. The moment he stopped the handouts and offered support in finding employment, instead, his relationship improved and his brother finally took responsibility for his life. This journey toward healthy self-interest isn't selfish, it's necessary. Think of it like the airplane oxygen mask instruction. Secure your own before helping others. You cannot pour from an empty cup, as they say. When you prioritize your well-being and goals, you become capable of making a genuine impact in ways that matter. The hidden truth many won't acknowledge is that chaos-prone people often unconsciously seek out helpers they can depend on. By consistently putting your goals first, you're not only protecting your life trajectory, but also forcing others to develop their own problem-solving muscles. This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires daily practice in saying no without guilt and yes with genuine enthusiasm. It means evaluating requests through the lens of your priorities rather than others' emergencies. The most successful, impactful people aren't those who respond to every plea for help. They're the ones who channel their energy strategically where it truly matters. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how to discern when helping truly serves both parties versus when it creates dependency. There's a profound difference between supporting someone through a temporary struggle and becoming their permanent solution. If anything I've shared resonates with your own experiences of feeling drained by others' demands, write in the comments. My oxygen mask comes first. I'd love to hear your thoughts on balancing compassion with self-preservation. Embracing ruthless self-interest isn't about becoming feared or disliked. It's about the fundamental recognition that in this world, nobody will prioritize your needs above their own. This revelation transformed my approach to both personal and professional relationships. When you consistently put others before yourself, you're sending a dangerous message that your time, energy, and worth are secondary. The hidden truth is that people naturally respect boundaries and those who maintain them. Think about it. The colleagues, friends, or partners you truly respect aren't the ones who drop everything at your request. They're the ones who carefully guard their priorities while still showing up authentically when they choose to engage. Behind every successful person is this powerful understanding. The world responds to how you position yourself. When you start operating from a place of deliberate self-interest, a fascinating transformation occurs. People no longer assume you'll be available at their convenience. They begin to value your time precisely because you value it first. The journey toward healthy self-prioritization requires confronting uncomfortable realities about human behavior. Most people unconsciously test boundaries, gradually taking more if permitted. It's not malicious. It's instinctual. By establishing clear parameters around what you will and won't accept, you're actually creating more honest, balanced relationships. I discovered this mindset shift dramatically improved my career trajectory. When I stopped volunteering for every project and instead focused on high-impact work that showcased my unique abilities, leadership began treating me differently. My opinions carried more weight precisely because they were more selectively offered. The same principle applies to personal relationships. Real intimacy isn't built on endless self-sacrifice, but on the authentic exchange between two self-respecting individuals. When you consistently defer your needs, you're not being virtuous. You're creating an unsustainable dynamic that eventually breeds resentment. This approach requires nuance. Ruthless self-interest doesn't mean ignoring the needs of others or becoming callous. It means understanding that your well-being must be the foundation from which you engage with the world. Like oxygen masks on airplanes, secure yours first. Before assisting others, the most profound impact comes in recognizing that this mindset isn't selfish in the traditional sense. It's necessary for sustainable success and genuine connection. When you operate from a depleted state, constantly seeking approval through accommodation, you have less to offer those who truly matter in your life. Now, I want to go even deeper into how this principle manifests in everyday interactions and how small adjustments in your behavior can fundamentally alter how others perceive and respond to you. If this perspective has opened your eyes to patterns in your own life, write in the comments. I choose myself first. When you prioritize yourself and your own well-being, something transformative happens to your persuasive capabilities. It's almost counterintuitive, but isolation, that sacred time when you're alone with your thoughts and ambitions, actually cultivates a form of independence that others find magnetic. Think about the most influential people you know. They didn't achieve their status by constantly seeking approval or making themselves endlessly available. They understood the power of selective presence. I've witnessed this pattern repeatedly in my own journey. The moments when I've been most influential weren't when I was desperately trying to convince others, but when I was firmly grounded in my own convictions and boundaries. This creates a fascinating psychological effect, where others begin to value your time and perspective precisely because you're not freely giving it away at every opportunity. The hard truth that many aren't ready to hear is that when you sacrifice your time indiscriminately, you inadvertently teach others that your time holds little value. It's a subtle form of self-sabotage that erodes your persuasive power. People rarely appreciate what comes too easily, and this applies directly to your availability and attention. This revelation changed everything in my professional relationships. I began treating my time as the precious, non-renewable resource it truly is. I stopped responding immediately to every request and started evaluating opportunities based on their alignment with my core priorities. The surprising outcome: people began respecting my boundaries and valuing my input far more than when I was constantly available. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this mindset shift affects not just how others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself. The internal transformation is where the real power lies. When you honor your time and energy, you develop a grounded confidence that becomes the foundation of genuine persuasiveness, not the manipulative kind, but the authentic influence that comes from self-respect. The hidden truth is that persuasion isn't primarily about techniques or tactics. It's about embodying a certain way of being in the world. When you're comfortable standing alone, you paradoxically become someone others want to stand beside. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about being deliberate with your most valuable resources. If this perspective on personal boundaries and influence resonates with you, write "Boundaries create value" in the comments below. I'm curious to know if you've experienced this phenomenon in your own life. The final transformation involves becoming a force who requires no validation. This shift represents the ultimate evolution in your journey, moving beyond the need for external approval. When you no longer seek validation from others, you access a rare form of power that few ever truly embody. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. It's about finding such deep certainty in your path that outside opinions become interesting data points rather than emotional necessities. Transformation isn't about adding more, but cutting back intensely until lethal efficiency remains. This principle contradicts most conventional wisdom about personal growth. Society constantly bombards us with messages about acquiring more skills, more credentials, more connections. But the masters across disciplines understand a hidden truth. True potency comes through elimination, not accumulation. Think of a sculptor revealing a masterpiece by removing excess stone. The beauty always existed within. It simply needed everything non-essential stripped away. Your potential works similarly. The journey isn't primarily about building yourself up, but rather chipping away everything that isn't authentic to your core essence. This philosophy of reduction extends beyond just habits or activities. It applies to your thinking patterns, emotional attachments, and even relationships. Each unnecessary element you carry creates drag in your life, slowing your momentum and diluting your impact. When I embraced this mindset, the revelation was profound. I discovered that much of what I thought defined me was actually obscuring my true power. The meetings that filled my calendar but drained my energy, the social media presence I maintained out of obligation, the projects I continued despite their misalignment with my vision, all were weights I carried unnecessarily. The decision to cut back isn't always comfortable. We develop attachments to our complications. They provide excuses, create the illusion of productivity, and often feed our ego's need for importance. Simplicity can feel threatening because it leaves nowhere to hide. But watch what happens when you ruthlessly eliminate the non-essential. Your energy condenses, your focus sharpens, and your abilities intensify. This is the paradox at work. By doing less, you become exponentially more effective. Your decisions gain clarity and power because they aren't diluted across 1,000 competing priorities. Now, I want to go even deeper into this transformation process by examining the specific mindset shifts that facilitate this evolution. The path requires more than just intellectual understanding. It demands a fundamental rewiring of how you perceive yourself and your relationship with the world around you. If you're experiencing clarity about this concept of elimination leading to greater power, write in the comments, "Less is lethal," because that simple phrase captures the counterintuitive truth that real force comes not from accumulation, but from precise reduction. You win without explanation as the old self becomes unrecognizable, marking true transformation starting with focus. When others wonder how you've suddenly elevated to a new level, the answer lies in your invisible journey. That period when you disappeared from social gatherings, declined invitations, and immersed yourself in deliberate practice. That's where your victory was silently forged. Indifference to past bonds ensures a rise through discipline and subsequent transformation. The uncomfortable truth is that certain relationships naturally fade when you commit to evolution. This isn't about abandoning people. It's about recognizing which connections nourish your growth and which quietly drain your potential. Sometimes the hardest decision on your journey is acknowledging when familiar patterns hold you back. The power of your personal renaissance comes from these hidden moments of sacrifice that others never witness. While they see only your results, you know the countless hours of refinement behind each breakthrough. This invisible training ground is where character is built, in the daily decisions that no one applauds. These private victories eventually manifest as public success, but the foundation is laid in solitude. What's fascinating about this process is how your perception shifts. Activities that once seemed intimidating become routine. Challenges that once stopped you cold become merely interesting problems to solve. This mental recalibration is perhaps the most significant revelation of personal growth. The understanding that limitations exist primarily in our minds. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this transformation affects not just what you do, but who you fundamentally become. The subtle shift in identity precedes the external changes others notice. You begin making decisions from the perspective of your future self rather than your past limitations. This identity-level change creates a powerful internal alignment that makes consistent action almost inevitable. When you genuinely internalize new standards, you no longer need external motivation. Discipline becomes a natural expression of who you are, rather than something you force yourself to maintain. The real breakthrough happens when excellence becomes your default setting, not an occasional peak performance. This is where sustainable transformation differs from temporary improvement. Remember that throughout this process, resistance is not just normal, it's necessary. That feeling of discomfort is simply the friction created as you move beyond established boundaries. Your mind naturally resists unfamiliar territory, but these resistance points are precisely where the most significant growth occurs. Each time you push through despite uncertainty, you expand your capacity in ways that remain long after the challenge passes. The journey of transformation follows a predictable path that few discuss. First comes the excitement, then the struggle, followed by the plateau where most abandon ship. But those who continue despite seeing no immediate progress eventually experience the breakthrough that appears sudden to outside observers. This pattern repeats at each new level, creating an upward spiral rather than a linear path. If what I've shared resonates with your experience or aspirations, write "Embracing the Invisible Journey" in the comments below. Disappearing into your mission creates a fascinating paradox that most men never understand. When you become so consumed by your purpose that your identity merges with it, You develop a form of invulnerability. Think about the greatest legends throughout history, from warriors to artists to leaders. They weren't just people doing things, they became indistinguishable from their calling. This transformation isn't about ego, it's quite the opposite. It's about becoming so deeply connected to something greater that your personal concerns, the petty worries, the fear of judgment, the need for validation, simply dissolve. When your mission becomes your identity, criticism bounces off you because it's no longer personal. You've transcended the realm where such things can touch you. Consider the mindset of a master craftsman who has spent decades perfecting their art. They don't create to please critics or chase acclaim. They create because that's who they are at their core. Their work flows through them as naturally as breathing. This is the state of being where true power emerges, not from trying to be powerful, but from complete surrender to your purpose. Now, about conquering your world versus serving others. This revelation often triggers resistance because we've been conditioned to view ambition and service as opposing forces. The hidden truth is that personal conquest and contribution exist in perfect harmony when properly understood. Conquering your world doesn't mean dominating others. It means mastering yourself and your environment to create something extraordinary. The greatest contributors to humanity weren't primarily focused on service. They were obsessed with their vision. Tesla wasn't thinking about serving humanity when he worked through the night on his inventions. He was consumed by the journey of discovery. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't just serving others. He was conquering a broken system that needed transformation. Your primary obligation is to fulfill your potential, to become everything you're capable of becoming. This isn't selfishness, it's responsibility. Because when you truly conquer your world, you naturally elevate everyone around you. Your excellence becomes a standard that inspires others. Your success creates opportunities that didn't exist before. Your breakthrough innovations solve problems for millions. Now, I want to go even deeper into this concept because understanding the relationship between personal ambition and impact requires rewiring some fundamental assumptions about how greatness emerges in the world. The path of the legendary isn't about choosing between self and others. It's about transcending that false dichotomy altogether. If this perspective is shifting how you think about your own mission, write "conquering, not serving" in the comments. It's a reminder that your first duty is to become extraordinary at what you do. What most people don't realize is that your environment is either a catalyst for greatness or a constant drag pulling you back to mediocrity. Think about it. When you're trying to build something extraordinary, you see invisible forces around you are either conspiring to help or hinder your progress. This is where the hidden truth about mastery emerges. Those who break through to exceptional levels of success aren't just disciplined, they're environmental architects. I recall working with a client who transformed her productivity after making one crucial change. Her phone, that small device that demanded attention every few minutes, was completely removed from her workspace. The transformation was immediate. Her focus deepened, her creative output doubled, and the quality of her work improved dramatically. This wasn't just about willpower, it was about removing the battlefield altogether. Your nervous system wasn't designed for the constant barrage of notifications, alerts, and interruptions that characterize modern life. Each distraction is like a small cut to your potential, not fatal on its own, but collectively bleeding your greatness dry. The journey to exceptional achievement requires acknowledging this reality and responding accordingly. What's fascinating is how environmental design triggers behavioral change at an unconscious level. When you deliberately construct your surroundings to align with your highest goals, you're essentially programming your default behaviors. This is where the real power lies, not in fighting against distractions moment by moment, but in creating a space where distractions simply cannot thrive. Consider the impact of declaring certain spaces as sacred ground for your work. This boundary setting isn't just practical, it's a profound statement about your relationship with excellence. You're essentially telling the world, in this space, I commune with my potential. Interruptions are not welcome here. The psychology behind this approach reveals something remarkable about human potential. When you consistently protect your focus through environmental design, your mind begins to associate that environment with deep work. A virtuous cycle emerges. The environment triggers focus, which produces results, which reinforces the power of the environment. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this environmental mastery extends beyond just physical spaces and into the realm of relationships and daily routines. This is where most people miss crucial opportunities for transformation. If what I've shared resonates with your experience, write "environment matters" in the comments. I'd love to know how many of you have already recognized this fundamental truth in your own journey. The people you surround yourself with are perhaps the most powerful environmental factor shaping your potential. Their expectations, habits, and worldviews silently influence yours, often without you realizing it. This is why extraordinary achievers are incredibly intentional about their social circles. When you consistently engage with people who normalize excellence, something remarkable happens. High standards become your default setting rather than something you need to consciously maintain. This isn't about abandoning relationships, but about being strategic with your energy and influence circles. Your daily routine is another critical environmental element that few optimize properly. The sequence of your actions creates momentum that either propels you toward greatness or subtly reinforces mediocrity. The most successful people I've worked with don't just manage their time, they design their days with the precision of a master craftsman. What would change if you approached your environment as the foundation of everything you're trying to build, not as an afterthought, but as the primary canvas on which your potential will be expressed? If you've made it this far, I can tell you're someone who understands the deeper principles of achievement. I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Hit subscribe so we can explore these transformative ideas together in future videos. If something in this message resonated particularly strongly, drop "environment matters" in the comments below. If you found value here, that like button is a simple way we can stay connected on this journey. There's a video right here that explores how to design your morning routine for peak performance. Click and continue with me over there to take your environmental mastery to the next level.